said, so that everybody that watches this can catch up, because we had Santa on last week.
Yeah.
And I said to you, hey, man, welcome to Louisville on a snowy night. And Ryan said, well, it was a nice night. It was snowing last week, and we had Santa on. And I said, you should have been here when we had Santa on. And you said.
Okay, say it again. No, I'm just kidding.
You said.
No, I said that when my kids were real young, I don't know, where I was kind of goofy with those little guys. It's a wonder they got any respect for me today. But I guess we watched Shaft, the movie, which they probably were too young to be watching that. But, and then, I don't know, we were probably at a buffet somewhere, and I was just thinking about, what would be neat if in the hood we developed this character call him Santa Shaft.
Yeah.
And of course, Santa Shaft would be driving the Eldorado, and he'd have all the gifts in the back.
Oh, man.
The kids just took to it like, yeah, Dad, that'd be a great idea. And I'm like, yeah, and he'd be like, who's the cat that you can't count out when there's danger all about? Well, that's part of the Shaft. And so now we incorporate some of the music for that for Santa. And he'd have
Shaft, that's who.
He'd be in a leather jacket with white, instead of a red jacket, he'd have on a little, leather jacket, I mean, the whole thing was stupid. It was really stupid.
And then about,
No, it's cool.
got the Mr. T starter kit on that says big S on it. Like, right?
Was that the writer that did wrote the soundtrack for Shaft? What was Isaac Hayes?
Oh yeah.
Can you imagine Isaac Hayes with a big leather jacket on and a little red hat driving the Eldorado?
It'd be fun.
Yeah, if there's a generation out there that doesn't know who Shaft is,
oh yeah,
look up Shaft.
He's real, and I enjoy him, and I think he got paid the other night.
Yeah,
I don't think that was a real fight in a way. I mean, it was real. I tell you what, the guy opened up one time, Mike would have took a shot at him.
Yeah, right.
He was hunting him. I don't know if
he
you
would
know.
have. See,
he was hunting him.
That's what people discount, I think.
I
think people discount that. If he'd have opened up,
he would have hit him. He was hunting him.
Yeah,
and Mike wasn't backing up. He was coming. He was just like, just give me one shot, and he would have knocked him square out. I'm sorry.
Oof. And we're in Louisville, Kentucky, the home of Muhammad Ali. So
yes, that's right.
We're standing up for Mike Tyson here.
Right up the road there.
His name was Cassius Clay.
Cassius Clay.
And he's changed it because he went to Muslim. Okay. I can't remember what they call it, the Nation of Islam. Okay.
Yes.
But Cassius, he was named after a actual abolitionist.
Okay.
So he was named after an abolitionist, and the guy, I don't know I know his name was Cassius, and the guy had his father, the man that he was named after, his father was a slave owner, as I understand it. But he was so appalled by the slavery, this Cassius character, that he rebelled against his family and whatnot. And it's kind of funny because, he became Muhammad Ali, which is fine. I mean, just like Abdul-Jabbar. But in this case, the name of Cassius was really about a guy that was trying to free basically black slaves.
Okay.
But I would imagine there's a lot of people who haven't heard that story, and they're like, yeah, named him Cassius, and he got rid of that slave name, and now he's got this, this name of a Muslim name, which is supposedly better than what he had. And I'm thinking, you can't be the name of a guy that was trying to free people.
Yeah.
Right.
Just happened to be white, but
if I may.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But it's funny. History is going to be what it is, and to try to get rid of it, or to try to manipulate it in a way that you want it to be presented. History should be just what it is. I went down to Nashville and ended up in a town south of Nashville called Franklin, Tennessee. And I don't know, it's probably not there now, but this is I even got it in my phone here actually. But they have I don't want to say monument, but like, how you're in downtown square,
right?
There's like a circle around it. I guess you can say it's monument statues. And one of the things that they had a display, and it actually had some original information about slavery, what how much a slave costs and all that.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm sitting there, I'm looking at this, and I'm just reading it because it's curious to me. I've never been a slave, so this is interesting information. In fact, nobody in my family's ever been a slave, as far as, you'd have to go back generations of people I never met, but it's all good. But the idea that there were people, I could feel them looking at me like, oh, we're just, white people, I would have to qualify that, clarify it. Like, boy, we're just so ashamed of this whole, because they just looked at me like, wish this wasn't here. And I'm just like, myself is, okay, I just want to know what happened, and they said how much they just had different articles in this, they had preserved this paper and laminated it under plastic or something. And they're just talking about, let's say an auction where they were auctioning. And then see, that don't offend me because I wasn't auctioned. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I'm not.
If I may interrupt you, you're about to segue into. I'm going to go back because I said you got to come on this show, and here's why. Because when I met you, he has somehow I said, Rufus, I don't know how you've done this, and I don't know how I can ask this or say this. Maybe it's a rhetorical question, but race is absolutely, if I may say, if I'm not putting words here, like unimportant to you. Unimportant.
It's
insignificant. Would I kind of say that? It may be a fact that we're not the same race, but it does not.
I'm a person of, let's say, African heritage, but I'm a person that happens to be black.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm
define
proud of
you.
being. I mean, what I am. What I tell you, what I am proud of. I don't know if when you say you're proud of a color, then you have to kind of ask people, are you proud to be white? Mm-hmm.
What else?
It doesn't make any sense.
Right. No. What else can I be?
Yeah, I mean, so I am who I am. But I tell you, growing up, my father was really big. He was very powerful in my life. He was a hard case dude too, but he was always talking about his family. Always Hardeman this, Hardeman that, Hardeman this. So his pride wasn't so much. He never talked about, well, we got to embrace being. In those days, we were colored, then later we were Negroes, whatever. He embraced the idea, hey, this is your family. This is where you come from. I mean, that's all he talked about. He wasn't nobody's Republican. He was nobody's Democrat. He was just a Hardeman. That's how he went about his life. And he was always he said, I got to live up to being a Hardeman. That's what he always talked about. And it was funny because it wasn't none of us up here, but except him and my mother. Well, of course, my mother was married into it and my sister. So I didn't have a lot of examples, but we'd go down to Dallas, and they had different businesses down there. My cousin down there had a trucking company and actually had a skating rink. So my feeling was growing up, it wasn't. We of course watched and we were involved, I guess, in some ways, the struggle that was going through the civil rights era. It's not like we were outside of it, but it wasn't the most prominent thing for us. It wasn't like, this is what we live for. We got to go this way.
Well, here's why I say that. And it was just so fun. It was fun to talk about all these things. 440 CUDA. You got to tell that story real quick.
Well, I bought I had a 67 Firebird that I used to race a lot. When I said race, we used to do the illegal racing, then also race at IRP. And
that's Indianapolis Raceway Park.
Yeah, Indianapolis Raceway Park. I had a 421 in there and a 389. I had a 455 because you could buy an engine out of junkyard for $75. Bought an engine out of a Trans Am. I swear to God, put it in there, and I was blowing up motors. And then, but the car I always wanted was a 70 CUDA. All right. When I was 14 years old, they came out with them, because I'm born in '56, and so there was this Chrysler's rapid transit system in the middle of the newspaper, and it had a Challenger and had the CUDA, and I was in love with this car. So 8 years later, I'm 20 years old, and I'm going down New York Street by a rural, and in the car lot there's a green 70 CUDA. Okay, now it's 6 years old, and it wasn't rough at all. It just was what it was. It was an older car, and I get out, and it's got 440 on the hood, and it's got factory air, and it's automatic. And I'm like, how much you want for this car? And the guy says $750. And I didn't have that money. I'm 20 years old, but I had that Firebird. So I sold my Firebird to a friend of mine for $650, and my mother gave me $100, and I went up there And I gave this guy, I gave him $100 to hold the car. And he said, I'm only going to hold it for a day. And I went and got the money, the remaining $650, and bought that car. And then I had that car, and then I had other cars but that was my Cadillac. Because back in those days, didn't nobody have air, back in the,
Right.
the 70s.
Nobody.
So I'm pulling up here in this car with air on, and I roll my window down. My buddies be like, you son of a... And so I had that car for a long time, and I had Chevy Novas, and I had all those other cars I would race, but this was my kind of like Cadillac to drive around. And I sold all those other cars, because, I had to get into business, but I kept that car. And I had no idea it would be worth anything, but it was just like a keepsake for me. Yeah. And so years later, I've got the car in my garage. It's been there since I was 20. I'm 68 now, so it's 48 years. And I started taking it apart.
And he's restoring the car.
Yeah, it's
one piece at a time. You got to see this thing. And he's doing just a world-class job on it.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I am. It's taken me 2 years. Really I had to sandblast it. I've had to learn how to weld sheet metal. That was, okay. Thank God for YouTube. Let's say that.
Yes.
So I just kind of put it together, and it's probably about 6 months out. Brand new quarter panels, two rear quarter panels. Brand new fenders. The rest of the car was pretty intact. There was just rust holes in different places where I didn't even know because it's set in the garage and had all the chrome trim around it. Once you took all that apart, I was like, "Oh, baby, you're falling apart on me." And I was like, "What the heck happened? You've been in the garage for 30 years. How'd you get rusty like this?" And so it's been a little bit of a challenge, but it runs. I used to build motors. When I say build, I used to rebuild. I probably put 20 motors together because I was blowing them up all the time, and I found I better learn how to work on them. And so, I put that up. It's got a 520 cam and 6,500 lifters, double roll timing chain. It's nice. It doesn't have the Edelbrock. I had a Edelbrock 6-pack for a while. I sold it for $75.
If anybody doesn't know what
it had factory part, it had Mopar part numbers.
6 2-barrels. That's
Oh, geez. The stuff I used to give away. But that's the story about the CUDA. She'll be out.
But
in
I
the
didn't
spring.
give anything away. I got everything I ever bought. It's still in my garage, and
I gotta
take a quick break.
Okay.
I still got the bicycle my dad bought me when I was 12. And what's funny, somebody was in there looking at my car. I said, "Here, let me show you about how time works." Up on the rafters, that's their gold AMF, which was $49.95 at Central Hardware back in the. I don't know if you remember Central Hardware.
I don't.
It was at Shadeland and Pendleton Pike, and they had one on the west side, but it doesn't matter. It was one of the first big hardware stores, and my dad bought me that bicycle, and I still got it.
You do?
And it's hanging from the rafters, and I said, my dad bought me that when I was 12, and then I bought this car when I was 20. I said 8 years go by, and I'm riding a bicycle to Boy Scout meetings, and then 8 years later, I got a girl on my arm, and I'm riding this car.
But you said you rode your bike from where to where?
Yeah. About when I turned 50, I don't know, I went through a little bit of change in life. Things were going on and whatnot. I don't know. I have a small business and all that. So you're always dealing with something. You already know that. And I just started riding my bicycle. And I always did ride when I grew up. I grew up kind of out in just outside of Fishers, Indiana. So in the summers, we rode a lot anyway. 3 or 4 miles, got to go to baseball practice. Anything you did, you didn't have helicopter parents. So you had to get there any way you could. Boy Scout meetings. I used to ride to Boy Scout meetings. It was 3 miles one way. I'd ride in the winter. It was 25 degrees, sometimes 18 degrees. I'd ride my bicycle to Boy Scout meetings. So cycling was something I kind of did as a kid, and a lot of kids do that. Somehow or another, got to be about 49, 50 years old, and I just got this thing where I thought, well, I'll start riding. A friend of mine had a bicycle. I used to ride on Saturdays. I'd ride 18 miles, and I'd come back and pat myself all over the back, and I weighed 230 pounds. And I said, well, look what I did. And then the more of it I did, and then somehow I got a little bit better bike, and next thing you know, I'm riding the Hilly 100, and, and like, boy, that almost killed me. And I figured, well, I'll get in better shape. And then a friend of mine started riding with me, and one day we're riding, and I see this shirt says rain on the back, and it was colorful, jersey. They call them kits.
Okay.
And but they're bicycle jerseys from my perspective. And it said rain on the back. And I was like, Dan, what's that all? My friend Dan, that rode with me. I said, "What's all that bad? What's that rain mean? Did they ride in the rain?" He says, "No, that's ride across Indiana."
Oh,
And I'd been riding for about 4 years at that point. And, I was running around 18, 19, 20 miles an hour, which is pretty fast for cycling. And if
Yes.
you do that for 25 and 30 miles, you're a pretty good cyclist if you can ride like that. So I hadn't got to where I start to feel my oats and thought, well, I'm a cyclist now. I said, damn, why don't we do that? What's the worst thing I ever said? Because this is a guy.
he took you up on it.
He says, yeah, but we have to train. He was real solemn about it. And I was like, I thought we were training, and he says, no, we got to really train. So next thing I know, Dan said, you really want to do this? We're going to train. So he called me up like Saturday morning and said, we got to ride 30 miles a day. And I was like, what? And he said, we got to train for the rain ride. So we started training in real earnest. And so I turned, I think, maybe 52 or so. I can't remember exactly. So we ride, we get in the car. I probably don't have time to explain all the details of it, but I'll just say we end up in Terre Haute, which is where you start at.
This is Terre Haute, Indiana, which is
Terre
the
Haute,
border.
Indiana is where you start.
That's on the west side of
Yeah.
Indiana.
Yes, right near the border. And can't remember the name of that school, Saint something anyway. You think all those things.
Well, Indiana State is over there.
Yeah, but it's another Catholic school. It's a college, but I can't remember that.
Xavier?
No, it might be St. Mary's or something like that. But anyway, we all these cyclists, like 2,000 of us, and we start out we're coming into Terre Haute now because we're on the west side of Terre Haute, and then we ride through downtown Terre Haute, and then we ride through Terre Haute, and then we get on US 40, and then US 40 goes on across and
straight across, straight as an arrow, all the way across.
Except when you get to Plainfield, we go south to avoid the traffic you're going to have in downtown Indy, and we end up through Southport, the south side of Indianapolis, and then somewhere on the other side of Indianapolis, we go north again and go up to Greenfield, and then we're back on US 40 again.
Yes, all the way to Richmond, Indiana.
Well, the first time I did that, it's just hard. I mean, psychologically, a lot of things happen when you're doing something difficult like that.
How far?
It's 164 miles.
100. Well,
so I got real tired, and then
long drive.
I was right on the berm of the road because I just didn't want to get hit by a car. I was just, and there's a lot of us out there, but I'm just riding real careful, and I mean, it's been a long time, and I got a succession of flats in the last 30 miles. And I tell you what, I got about 15 miles out, and I ran out of inner tubes because I had a piece of metal in the tire, and I was too stupid to figure out that I need to get it out before I put a new tube in there. And I ran out of CO2 cartridges is what you use to energize. So I had my hand pump. So I'm worn out, as you can imagine, 150 miles into this. And my phone's ringing, and I'm ready to throw it into the street because I don't want them to come get me. I got to finish this ride because I know they're at they're at Richmond at Earlham.
Earlham College.
Yeah,
yes.
they're at Earlham, and they're like, "Where's Rufus?"
College.
And I'm just like, man, I got to finish this. So I got to some place where it was like an antique place that was closed, or dry goods, whatever. It was antique store.
Antiques. Let's say I know 40 well. That would be Cambridge City.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
And I was so tired, I just laid down on the sidewalk on the stoop there, and I was like, oh man, And I said, Lord, I'm gonna need your help. And I think a lot of times you pray, but when you don't really need much, it ain't the same as when you really need some help.
Right.
And I was like, I can't do this, and that prayer gave me the strength. I got up and I pumped that tire up, and I rode on in on half of a flat of a tire and got in. Okay, so then I was ashamed of myself that everybody else beat me in, so I had to do it next year.
And how many times did you do it?
I did it 9 times.
Wow.
And
wow.
And the last
that's 1,000 miles on a bicycle.
Two times I got in, and you got to get in before 9 in order for you to get your name on the register. And the next 8 times I got in before 9 o'clock. One time I got in at 7, and we start at 7. So it's at 12 hours. Most of the time it's 13 hours. But anyway.
Wow. Okay.
And you know what? This is my only point about it is when you do something, and you've done this, and you have to. And I'm talking about something that was really hard.
Yeah.
It changes you.
It does.
And it changed me. Now it made me it just changed me in so many ways. I became just a little different. I can't hardly explain
In
it.
a good way.
In a good way. It was just a little different. I didn't seem to feel like I had to go out and tell everybody I'm the guy in the room every time. It was like I'd done something that other people had done, but I was one of them now. You know,
My sign up there, interviews about life's passions. And here's what I say. Things like that are the fuel for an interesting life. That's when I introduced the show, I said, we got to talk about people who don't sit around with their feet propped up. Not that it's bad to sit and watch a football game, but if you always say, tomorrow, I'll try to do that tomorrow.
Or I did that yesterday.
Isn't that right? And you know, like,
you remember a guy named Bruce Williams used to have a talk show.
no.
He was on WIBC. This is for
Yo,
talk.
I know WIBC.
Before talk radio got to be a real thing. It was back in I don't know, maybe in the 80s. But he said a friend of his wanted to go back to law school, and he was 45 years old. And his friends all told him and said, it's going to take you 3 years, and you'll be 48 years old when you get out. And he said, you know what? I got to thinking about it. In 3 years, I'll be 48 anyway.
That's it. That's true.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying
That's-
as you go through life, that's kind of how you look at it. There's things that maybe you can't do, but you should never tell yourself you can't, or at least try not to.
Rufus,
This humility is, I think, what if I think about what it showed me when I went across the state, I think I learned a certain amount of humility.
well,
And I found faith too. I think that was part of it. It's some other thing, but whatever it was, it changed me a little bit.
it's not meant to
Love that.
train other people. It's meant to train ourselves, isn't it? The whole thing.
Yeah, that's what I look at the things what the slogan is. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's
Yeah.
a true thing. That's true. If my father, when he died, I was 17. Everybody's like, "Whoa, that's just hard on you." I said, "Well, he could have died when I was 13."
Right.
And so, if he'd have died and left me $200,000, or I would have burned it up. He left me with no debt and a business I could take over, and some values. And that's worth more than anything he could have. And that struggle I had to do for the first few years, the things I had to learn how to do, and all other aspects of life, they make you who you are.
Good parents, the best lottery you'll ever win.
Yep.
Don't you think?
And just to put in perspective, your dad, as you talk about him, is a little different in African American families because I think of the things that they had to deal with. Okay, and we can go there, but there's a short that you can see on YouTube. Denzel Washington. It was a movie he did called Fences, and there's a passage in there where his Denzel Washington is the father, and his son is dealing with this strife between him and his dad. And the son says, can I ask you a question? And he says, what? He says, why ain't you never like me? And then that's this whole tense scene of Denzel standing up. He said, boy, come over here, and he's right up in his face. He says, I ain't got to like you. I got to, take care of you. It's my responsibility. He said, you in life, you better not be trying to look around for people to like you. You better hope they do good by you.
Yes.
Okay? And every time I watch that scene, the hair on the back of my neck stands up. And people look at me and say, is that your dad? I said, yeah, that's my dad. Now, that man was hard, but I love that man. That man was hard.
All right, see if
and
this
dads in that and from that genre had just a different kind of. They weren't domesticated, so to speak. They were all about. Some of them were war veterans, whatever they were. They were just like, hey, you know what? I'm preparing you for the future, and everybody ain't gonna be nice to you. So I'm not. But you can bet one thing: I love you. They don't. So if I'm beating you, it's because I love you.
Yeah.
That's my dad. Now I ain't saying your dad's, but I'm saying my dad was like, I'm beating you because I love you.
Oh no,
He
I
didn't
knew what
say
a-
that, but
I
I
knew
know
what a
that's what he
switch
meant.
was in my home. Yeah. It was like go pick your own stick because.
Well, I could outrun my dad. In fact, I took off one time. He was trying to chase me, and I ran around and did about 3 laps and then hid behind a tree. And as he ran by with the switch, trying to get me,
Yeah.
I let him run on by, and then I whistled at him.
See,
That
Yeah,
did not
that-
go.
that would
did
not-
not go over
I
well.
wouldn't
Bad-
be
I
here
wouldn't.
bad
today.
decision.
I wouldn't recommend it. Okay,
I
but
wouldn't be here today if that ever happened. I
Yeah.
just wouldn't be here.
You just wouldn't be here.
There wouldn't have been
Rufus
nothing
would
left to me.
yeah. Well, Rufus, it's a pleasure to have you. As we got so many things to talk about, man.
Yeah.
And I enjoy talking about life and politics and what means most in life, and your sons are important in your life, and I'm sure they look up to everything that you're doing, and you're still doing it. That to me it's so great to do all this.
I told him, I said, I knew my dad died when I was 17, so I said, it's amazing what he teaches you, because I knew how to be a father all the way up to when they turned 17 and 18. And I said, I don't know how to be a father after 18 because I didn't have him. So I said, you guys are going to have to help me with that. Of course, they're looking at me like you're crazy. But it's been a different thing. But I've been all right. I mean, so now you go to the bar. I never went to the bar with my dad. So I'm sitting there drinking. They're legal age. And I'm like, this is weird.
Well, it's my observation to you. Here's how you were successful doing that. Rather than you trying to think, well, 17, you would just reduce your activities to a 17-year-old and hang out with him.
Yeah.
All right, we'll just all be 17 for the rest of our lives. I said, socially, I felt like I climbed hard to get up to about 17. Then I've been 17 pretty much.
I don't think
said,
you
when
should
you going to
ever-
grow
I
up?
used to always
When you
be-
going to grow up, Peter Pan? I'm like, I don't want to grow up.
I think I've always reflected on that. I don't think I thought of myself as being youthful, but I never thought I always felt, when I looked in the mirror, I was always surprised. I looked at somebody older. I was like, really? Or no, and it's not even the mirror. I think you get used to that. But if I ever saw video of myself, I'm like, wow.
Age is a brutal thing.
Ooh, that's an old guy running. But I don't feel that guy. I'm like, man, I don't think of myself reflectively as that guy that I just saw in the video. I said, that's not me.
And see, the thing, you sent me a video on your way over here, and you said, check us out, because he and I both play
I'm
music
sorry,
together.
Dad.
But it's good. Oh, I really like it. I really liked it. And you haven't seen it. I'm going to show it to you. But he's playing the guitar and singing. So we'll break away and put that on the show, and we'll end with you playing that guitar, because it's kind of a haunting little song. I like it. I like it a lot.
I played a little bit when I was like 17 or so, maybe till I was about 19, maybe, off and on, a little acoustic, but never really very good. And I'm still not good now. But I went to go see my son in New York, and he had a guitar, and I picked it up. He had a brand new guitar, and I was like, this is pretty neat. It has a tuner on it and everything.
Yeah.
I didn't even know electronic tuner. I don't know if they got them on there. Where you can press a button and it like boom, boom, E and D and all that. And then I was like, this is pretty neat. So I started kind of messing around with it, and Dad, you used to play guitar, didn't you? And I was like, yeah, I was never very good, but I'm sitting there messing around with it, and somehow the bug hit me. And that's about 3 years ago. And then I, kind of messed around with old guitar. I had an old one, and I played it a little bit, and then I started playing a little bit more. And for about a year and a half now, I've been at it, which lets me know. And what happens is when I record myself, in fact, the first time I recorded myself, I stopped playing for 2 months. It was so bad.
Oh, okay.
I just because
And
I
then
thought
Dan said, I'm starting to play the guitar. And I'm like, okay, I'll pick it back up. Dan.
Yeah, Dan plays the bass. He
See what I...
Yeah.
And I ain't even told. I'm not even want to play with Dan because
I'm
he would be instructional. He's like, here's what you got to do. You're missing this, then your timing's off. He'd start working on me, and I'm like, I don't want to be fixed.
Well, Dan does a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's an all tools guy. Oh, he used to build houses. I mean, really high end stuff. I mean, really, he's a perfectionist. He's crazy. Like I said,
that's good.
Sometimes I'm looking around. I said, he's not around. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm not gonna put this in there like that, because
I'm gonna hurry, huh?
Yeah, but he's just a good guy. But I started playing the guitar, and I sent you that a little bit there. And what's funny?
We're gonna close the show with you playing that song because I really liked it. And so,
but
Cameron,
year from now, I will really be able to play that well. Right now, it's just it'll be a good comparison because a year from now,
he can sit in with us sometime.
Well, I mean, Cameron's got his work cut out for him because he's got to find. Your dog was Clyde.
Yeah,
Clyde.
Yeah, got to find a picture of Clyde. And a video of you playing guitar.
There you go. All right.
Jesus Christ.
So get those to us. I wish we could stay forever. We can't tonight.
I know.
No,
that sucks.
I'll get back on the road. I hope the weather's let up because there was a couple of times on the highway. I'm like, oh my goodness.
So just
It was snowing.
Just steering to the turn, man. Steering to the skid, right?
Did it the
Controlled
other morning.
skid.
Okay, try to remember that when it's a
Come back. Come back.
Get out of my way.
Come back. It's a pleasure,
All right.
my friend.
All right.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for
As
having me.
always.
Thank you for having me. So
Come back.
off the air.